He has small children that distract him.
Alrighty, and we're on YouTube.
Okay, very good. All right, so welcome everybody. We are going to go ahead. We've got another member or two that we're expecting, but at this time, I'm going to ask the planning department to go ahead and do, I'm Bruce Smith, I'm chair, by the way, hi. I'm going to ask them to run to our meeting protocols so we can get through that before we get on down to business. So,
Awesome.
Keiko, you want to start us? I think you do that part, that first part.
We kind of trade off on that one.
Okay, whoever wants to go first.
Okie dokie. Well, aloha, folks. Thank you for being here. I think I see Pete coming in, so once he's here, we'll officially have quorum for this meeting. We're once again navigating new waters as we jump into our hybrid meetings. We're managing our Zoom call here, and we're also on an Insight courtesy location at the West Hawaii Civic Center. So excited to be kind of getting our toes in the water of being back in person again. So exciting stuff. We've got our technology here, a camera in the center of the room that turns to face whoever's talking, and a central microphone for all of us here. Although all of us here right now is myself, and we have Elise, and we have Shauna, and we have Keiko, who is at home. So along with the opportunity to join us here in person, members of the public have the option to watch this meeting live on the Planning Department's YouTube channel, or of course, join us here on Zoom. Let's see, what else do I have to say here? I kind of jumped ahead on my little cheat sheet here. Okay, so at the start of this meeting, we're doing something a little bit different, and I'm pretty excited about it. We have a sign-in sheet. The first time that you fill out this sign-in sheet, it asks you for information about yourself. So we're asking some questions to find out who you are and to find out how you came to be at our meeting, so we know where our outreach is going. After you fill this out the first time, you won't have to put these details in again. When you sign in the future, you'll just give us your name and we'll know who you are. So if you could please fill that out, whether you're watching us. We don't have any folks that aren't community. Oh, we do, I'm sorry. Margaret's here with us on Zoom. But if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to fill that out too, so we know that you're here. And we'll be dropping those links in the chat. So the folks that are here with us on Zoom, we do have some protocols that we follow. Zoom attendees, please remain muted and minimize distractions so as not to take away from the person that's speaking. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand virtually or literally and wait for recognition from staff or the chair before speaking. Please note that the Zoom chat function is not readily viewable here at our in-person site or on our Zoom, on our YouTube live stream. Members of the public that are here with us, please feel free to use the chat function. Your input will be noted by us planning staff and by the action committee members. However, if you want to ensure your comments are incorporated into the discussion and minutes, we encourage you to sign up to provide public comment or submit written testimony. If you're joining us from YouTube, please feel free to leave comments in the chat box area. We are monitoring the chat and we do our best to try to pull comments that come into the YouTube chat into our meeting, but we're not always able to do that with 100% efficiency. So, but we definitely encourage and love to hear your input. So with all that being said, does anybody have any questions? And does everybody feel comfortable on the Zoom call? I'm not getting any no's, so I'm going to turn this over to our chair, Ruth Smith. Ruth, you're muted.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to officially call the meeting to order. It is 5:10 p.m. We have quorum present plus. And I'll go through the roll call. Well, let's just do that. And actually, I'm just going to say who's here. So we have Bill Sanborn, Kevin McLaughlin, Pete Hendricks. We've got Scott Nagata, and we've got Karen Anderson and myself. Absent from the committee is Julia Alos and Mark Jordan.
Ruth, I apologize. It's
ahead.
another funny sunshine law requirement, but we need to, for action committee members, give an opportunity to announce anybody else that's in the room or in your immediate area.
Oh, yes. Anybody have anybody sitting in the room with them that can eavesdrop on this conversation? True confession time. Pete's saying no, everybody's okay. Hearing none, thank you. Appreciate that, since this is on Zoom. Okay, Heather, anything else I'm supposed to remember before I keep going?
That's all I have to bother you about.
Okay. So now we're going to, I'm going to just run through some quick announcements, some of which you've seen, some of which you may or may not have seen. Our planning department sent us out the speaker series that's coming up through the South Kohala Coastal Partnership. The first of those that is going to happen is this Wednesday. I mean, the first one that's not already happened, the first next coming one. From 12 to 1, the Department of Land and Natural Resources is going to be reporting on 2021 ocean legislation bills that became law. So you may want to avail yourself of that. There is a Zoom link on that, and that might be worthwhile. On that same day, also on May the 11th, County of Hawaii is going to be coming over. This is going to, I understand this is sponsored by Research and Development. They're going to be doing an informational session between 5 and 7 at the Waikoloa Village Association's banquet room, but not mentioned on the flyer, but it will be sent to you by planning because this just happened. There is going to be a Zoom link on that. So if you can't physically get to the banquet room to hear that, you will be able to participate that. Again, that's this coming Wednesday from 5 to 7. The next thing that happens, and this is this is a public meeting notice that is what it was formerly the Waikoloa Maneuvers Area Restoration Advisory Board meeting. So the Army Corps of Engineers is going to be holding a meeting on Wednesday, May the 18th from 5 to 6:30. This has to do with the ongoing ordinance removals that our entire area, well, maybe not Puoko, but both Waimea and Waikoloa. I can do this, Margaret. And I tried to do a cut and paste on this. I actually got this out of the Waikoloa Village Association's breeze that the Village Association does. So that's the first time I'd seen notice of this. So I literally had to print it because I couldn't do a copy and paste. I tried, so sorry about that. Okay, so, okay, Keiko's just putting up the information on the Zoom, but she's also going to send that out by email to us because some of us don't do chat that well in the middle of all this. Okay, so again, that is also on a Wednesday, May the 18th. Another calendar event is that on the 18th of July, I'm sorry, excuse me, June, Saturday, the 18th of June, the Firewise Committee in coordination with the county is going to have an open house day for members of Waikoloa to practice using the emergency exit road. This is what we've requested for a long time, was to have a fire drill. Then we had the actual fire in August, but we didn't take data on that. So hopefully this will be one that's done with data taken, but that's an upcoming thing. And then just back to the coastal one, which I wanted to highlight to you. All of these relate to South Kohala. All of these do. But the fun one to me, I already talked to Karen about this, is the one that's on July the 13th, and it's entitled, "What's the Scoop on the Poop at Puako?" So I'm sure we're all going to be riveted to that, and we're going to want to know about the poop at Puako. Besides Karen, she already's got that down pat. Okay. The only other thing that I don't, planning, I don't know if this is where I was supposed, we talked about this, but we didn't talk about where I was supposed to talk about in the meeting, and that's about the feasibility study. This is not an announcement. Well, it is, it's a information piece. Where should I do that? Someone help me here.
I'm sorry, Ruth, what are you asking?
I'm asking about, remember when I was talking about the MOA and the feasibility study that's being done on a second access road? I want to make that as an announcement that that's happening, because we've never had anything to announce about the second access road ever. Do I do that here, or do I do it at another place in the agenda?
Here. Yeah.
Here. Excellent. So Waikoloa Heights is the large development up here that is already, in the village, we get notices that, don't get scared, they are dying, they are blasting in Waikoloa Heights. So Waikoloa Heights, when you come into Waikoloa, it's all this way as far back as you can go through Kamakoa Nui, through the stoplight, and it's this large area, and they're moving forward with building 2,600 units. So Waikoloa Heights, between Waikoloa Heights and moving towards the Queen K Highway, there's Waikoloa Village Associate, Waikoloa Heights, Waikoloa Village Association, and a community that used to be known as 1010 Puako, but it's now known as Kamakoa LLC. And there is, the good news is they have come together with a MOU to grant rights to be on the properties to conduct a feasibility study on a second road out of Waikoloa. This has been our longstanding request, prayer, begging. So this is good news that there's actually going to be a feasibility study. The dates on that they're running it is between May 1 of this year up to May 1 of the following year, 2023. So we've always known this would be a longer thing, but the fact that we have anything happening, I'm doing a whoopee dance. So, okay. So now, if that's it for my announcements. I'm going to move on and ask for someone to make a motion to approve the minutes. Just to remind you, on Robert's rules, we've got to have a motion on the table and seconded before we can discuss it. So if I can have a motion to move the minutes of the March 14th meeting, I'd appreciate that. Okay, Pete's moving to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Karen seconded. Thank you. Okay, so you have those minutes. Is there any discussion? Is there anything that anyone found omitting or incorrect in those minutes of that? Okay, hearing none. Going to ask for a vote on approval of this. Karen, why don't you start us? Aye. Okay.
Aye. Aye.
Scott? Yep. Okay. Pete?
Aye. Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. Bill? William?
I can't get my pointer to get to turn me on, so now I'll tell you yes.
Okay, thank you. And I also vote yes. So the motion carries and the minutes are approved. Now we're going to go into, as you know, we always have time for public comment. We have had testimony submitted by Jojo. Where's a copy of that? Tanimoto submitted to the planning department and is what has been forwarded to the action committee. Planning, is there any comment that you want to make to fill us in on this testimony? The members do have it, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, not directly. I think Jojo was wanting to be here to testify, you know, on the Zoom, but I don't see her on here. So I don't know if maybe she'll show up later or,
Oh, okay.
yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, and Margaret, you're here. Did you have something you wanted to testify on? Yes, okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, this is Margaret Willie. I'm recognizing her.
And this is on prioritization of projects, which is on the agenda. Director Kern asked for input on that. And again, I want to stress the funds that would be used for these projects do not have to be shovel ready. And it's to how, you know, the number of communities affected, how it affects the island as a whole. Anyway, I just want to stress the importance of continuing the connector road bypass from Kauai High Road to the highway, so that it would connect either from the transfer station up to around the rodeo grounds, or it could, if there were more money, connect lower down on Kauai High Road in an area that I think someday there'll be a connection across to Waikoloa village, or if there was not that much money, that it would even go from Opello Road, the bottom of Opello Road. And that would mean that there is a complete bypass such that there's not the chokehold in Waimea. And the importance here is that this project has always been put aside, in that, as opposed to other projects, say even like the exit emergency roads in Waikoloa, are not doable because a significant amount of money is required. So this is probably the one category where that road could get in. And its significance is that it affects east-west traffic and north-south traffic. It affects all areas of the island, and including access to the hospital, which is really you know, where I started becoming interested in this. So that's my input. So as you're evaluating or prioritizing, that I think this should be taken into account. There was a study done, I think it was 2008, by one of the big firms. County spent hundreds of thousands on the study, just saying that that was both the connector road Aloha and this connection are high priority for the island as a whole. And nothing then happened on that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, just trying to get that into the group's priorities. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Margaret. And I know that Bill and Pete and now Scott are monitoring, especially for us, those Waimea needs, which are definitely ongoing. Okay, so seeing no one else to testify, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the first order of business. So our first order of business is infrastructure priority discussion. Director Kern has requested the action committee provide key infrastructure projects in South Kohala District. Planning staff will record the projects identified, including written input submitted post-meeting to provide to the director. Note that these infrastructure projects may not be directly referenced in the CDP. A summary of the input will be shared back to the AC and included in the minutes of this meeting. So we have moved forward with this somewhat and by really sending the director, I think that was part of our last meeting. Yeah, in March, sending the director a letter asking to please look at the priorities established in the CDP. And then we also, I'm not sure planning what else, or maybe let me just throw it open to discussion. Who else, what else needs to be added to that we've already sent?
Right, so Keiko has a kind of a baseline sheet that she's going to share here that includes things that we established at the last meeting, priority wise, and we've added a couple more that come from the CDP. Just want to stress here that a lot of these items come from the CDP, and the CDP says a lot about different infrastructure priorities, but the landscape has changed a lot since 2008. So anything more current that maybe isn't necessarily in the CDP, but still a priority for the district is definitely encouraged. As far as the process moving forward and talking to the planning director, we are still kind of figuring out as we go what this framework is going to be and what the decision-making process is going to be like. As far as negotiating projects and how much funding would be allocated between the state and the county. But what we're trying to do is be prepared for the conversation when it comes up, so that the decision makers have in hand what the action committee members and the community that attend our meeting as well see as priorities for their district. And I know we talked about this in the last meeting, and mahalo Ruth for kind of, bringing this up earlier. The reason why it's on the agenda again is because this is something that we're doing across all the action committees. So this is just another opportunity. If there's anything that we missed in our letter, this is an opportunity to discuss additional infrastructure projects. This is meant to be open discussion. So there's no real structure here. This is just an opportunity for folks to voice their thoughts, and we're here to record those thoughts, and we'll make a list similar to this one, send it back to you folks for review so you can see what we've captured out of the conversation, and then that will go up to the planning director. And we're not so much focused on difference of jurisdiction between county and state in this conversation, although it's important. What we're hoping is by suggesting projects that are also maybe state projects outside of our jurisdiction or our Kuleana as action committee members, but to encourage a bit more of like a cohesion and working together with the state. We're all in the same district anyway, so all impacts us the same way. I tried to look into the types of categories that the infrastructure bill covers. And I can't say that I'm an expert on this infrastructure bill, but some things that we've been able to pull out are things like mass transit, roadway networks, highways, non-motorized travel. So that's, bicycles, pedestrians.
Question.
I know there's provisions for water and wastewater as well, but I don't know the details.
Question
Sorry.
for Pete.
Go ahead,
Hello.
Pete.
Question from Pete. I assume the Waimea first bullet, implement short-term traffic mitigation, is essentially the SSFM study that was done with all the major intersections in the middle of Waimea. And
Hey, what's that acronym?
It's a consultant, SSFM.
No, it's a consultant company.
yeah, it's an engineering and planning company. And
Yeah,
there's a-
this language was pulled directly out of the letter,
Okay, thank you.
actually.
Yeah, and if we could get those done, that'd be super.
Okay.
Say that I added a couple things to this list that weren't in the letter. So you'll notice under Kauai High, I have potable water in Kauai High. I know that's a big concern. Don't know exactly how that relates to the infrastructure bill, but definitely feeling like it's of relevancy at least, and wouldn't hurt to include. Also included a note for the Puako wastewater treatment facility at the bottom.
Yeah, but you also put in I thought, Karen, you told us that we had an evacuation route for Puako. That wasn't the CDP, but I thought at the last meeting, Karen, you told us that you have your exit. Is that
We
correct?
do. We do
Yeah,
have an exit.
that's-
Yes.
Yeah, that got taken care of. So we can take that out.
It's through Monalani, just FYI.
Right. That's what I thought you said. Okay, great. Okay. Can you scroll back up to Waimea? Okay, so Heather, you said that you were not making a distinction on this list between whether it was county or state. So
That's correct.
last time we, according to the minutes, we decided to remove the item regarding the Waiaka Bridge. Because that, I mean, we said that would be for the state to address. I see it's not on this list. So are you saying we should?
So the point of this this list that I have on what we have on the screen here is not to be a end all of all the projects that we're suggesting. It's just a base point for to start getting the ideas flowing. Anything that's suggested in this conversation, we're noting and we're adding to the list. So the Kauai High bypass is definitely going on the list too. We can add Waiaka.
Okay, Waiaka will need to go up under Waimea, I think, not under Kauai High, unless I'm wrong. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, needs to come up under Waimea.
Hey, Ruth,
Yeah,
on here is to provide walkways and bikeways for Waimea. I think we had a little bit of a conversation about this. The next phase of the Trails and Greenway would be getting across Lindsay Road and getting past Parker School over to Church Row. And from Church Row, there is in the back a road in limbo, which my understanding is it means it is a county road now from a lawsuit in Honolulu, unless the state decides that they want to claim that. And that goes all the way over to almost Mana Road. And it also has a spur that goes up to the forest reserve. And I think that needs to be brought up a little more because most people don't know about it, particularly the politicians. And in talking with David Tarnas, he said that he really couldn't do anything more until there was some discussion about it. And maybe we should have that discussion. Margaret probably knows about the alignment that is behind Parker School, but that's an improvement that could be made.
okay, Bill, I'm kind of flying blind on this. Just wondering if we're going to include language about that.
Well, you should very much put the connector that's already there that's supposed to go past Parker School to Church Row. The next leg of it is a new project, but I would think that there's at least the ability to try to get it to Church Row.
I guess what I'm asking, unless planning, you're completely following this. if you would help us with language on this.
What the way we're facilitating this conversation is just as an open discussion. So we have this being recorded on Zoom. It's also on YouTube, so it's being recorded there. Thoughts that are shared here, we're basically going to be adding to a list, sending it back to you folks. So what I'm saying is the point of this conversation is not to deliberate on language, but to talk about the projects themselves.
And maybe it would be helpful, Bill, if you want to provide us specific connector roads. I'm sure Elise is capturing all of this, but we're going to be accepting any written comments after this, let's say for 2 weeks or so. So Bill, if you want to provide more details, you can do that through email.
Okay, is Margaret still on?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, because she would know what the alignment was that goes past Parker School. My understanding is that there's already an alignment for that goes over to Church.
So she typed into chat. Parker School agreed to provide a corridor for trails. Well, there it went away. Behind Parker School.
Thank you, Margaret.
So it looks like we'll get some language from Margaret.
Okay.
Just for information, there is an old dedicated government road which starts behind Church Row. You go along the stream by the cemetery and parallels Mamalahoa Highway behind the homesteads, the lower homesteads. It goes all the way above Kohala, the Point Homes Hall, and comes down at Mana Road. And so that would be a nice extension of the existing Waimea Trails and Greenways. It's a long ways off, but it is a project that our kids should follow.
The good news is you don't have to acquire any land. It's already.
Can somebody say something so I know if I'm not hearing anything?
Oh, no, you're good. We just haven't been talking.
Okay.
Everybody deep in thought, I imagine.
Well, you know, I'm just, I told you I never do this, but I am actually looking through the chat and I'm looking at one of the things that Margaret said, and I kind of, I'm inclined to agree that, so Margaret said, my impression is that the director is seeking input to reduce the list, not keep adding more projects. And I think that's originally why we had not really, when we were first looking, we were looking at, we didn't prioritize them by region. Kevin was helpful with getting us to take those bullets out in the letter, so it didn't make it sound like, but what we did do was we didn't add, I mean, we specifically, both in, when I drafted the letter, we pulled the most critical things out from each section of our South Kohala area to include in that letter. So I guess I'm looking again, planning in terms of, so I share Margaret's concern. First of all, this money, well, it's middle of May almost, and I know the money hasn't been moving, but it's been authorized since last August. So I just want us to be sure that it doesn't come back as muddy or murky about what the highest priorities are, particularly if the request is going out to all the action committees. I still remain unclear about the process by which the administration is going to make final decision.
Yeah, I don't think we're necessarily clear on that either. I think the point of this is to be prepared so the planning director is prepared when the conversation does start. That he has a starting point and kind of knows the things that are being discussed in different districts around the island.
We don't
As-
want to muddy the waters, but this second phase, Lindsay Road to Mana of the Trails and Greenways is important long-term, and we just wanted to get it on the record. It doesn't have to be first priority. It doesn't have to be on this list, but somewhere in the record. Thank you.
Well, we can certainly include it in the minutes of this meeting as the discussion we've had, and it's important. I guess if I understand what's being requested, then planning, you're going to take together and pull this together and send it out or send it to us to make sure that that's what we're signing off on, right? Is that step correct so far? Okay. And then that's going to be taken to the director, who will get these from all the action committees, and then we'll be working with the mayor on that.
Yeah.
That okay.
Yeah, excuse me. My understanding is that they're setting up a task force. The administration is setting up a task force. And so this is kind of the initial phase of gathering information. And so certainly the infrastructure letter that you folks sent in at the last meeting will be a part of that. And then in this discussion, we can include language around not wanting to muddy the waters and be very clear about what you folks are prioritizing to some extent. And what we're still wanting to just keep at the forefront of our thoughts. And it could be that we come back to you folks again after the task force has been established, and then they figure out how they're prioritizing projects themselves, who's going after what grants, how these things connect around the island with the work of each department. It could be that we come back to you folks again looking for more or additional mana'o around specific things.
I'm confused. I'm confused here because one of the bullet points is to provide walkways and bikeways for Waimea second phase. What is the second phase?
Oh, sorry, that was just me making notes as you guys were talking. So I can absolutely delete that. I thought the second phase was the connector point to Mana.
Well, no, actually, I think that the important thing is that the mayor and the task force knows that there's already an agreement to move the extension of Trails and Greenways over to Church Road, by Parker School. And I also think it's also to get it on the radar that there is a road in limbo that's actually county jurisdiction that should be noted, because that, just get it on the radar. That's all I'm saying.
And specify, Bill, what is the road that's in limbo, please?
The road that's in limbo is an old Jeep road that goes from Church Row in between all of the agricultural lands that are over there, and has a spur that goes up to the forest reserve, and it comes out just by Hawaiian Homelands Hall. And that's been on the books forever. And the reason why the county needs to know about it is that unless the state wanted the road, which that doesn't seem to be an issue right now, the county has jurisdiction based upon lawsuit that was told that you can't just say, oh, I don't know if it's mine, I don't know if it's the state's, it's the county's.
And not to muddy the waters a little bit, Pete here, the next phase of the Trails and Greenways apparently is from Polychaea down to what we call Clark Park, donated, the 8 acres donated by Henry Clark at Lalamilo. So that would be the next phase, immediate phase of Waimea Trails and Greenways.
You know what would help me a lot? A map. A map would help me a whole lot to know, because I mean, I'm pretty good on the established roads in Waimea. I'm not quite so good on those that aren't there yet, and jumping around. And I'm tempted to go grab my copy of the CDP. I don't remember. Margaret, do you remember, did we have a map in there that talked about this in the Waimea section?
I don't recall exactly what's.
I'm gonna go grab my notebook. I'll be right back.
We have a map of the road in Limbo from Church Row on, which we can get to you. But more importantly, I would think is if the next phase is on the Mackay section of the park down, that and the one to Church Row would be probably more apropos to this particular recommendation.
Can I ask a question? I'm a little in the dark here. What was the first phase of this Waimea Walkways and Pathways? I have no idea where any of this is.
You know where Canada France Hawaii School and the school, Waimea School are? The entrance to the Waimea Trails and Greenways is next to Canada France. If you go into the nature park and walk along the stream, there's a trail that goes about a mile down to meet Kauai Road. That's the most obvious and nicest part of the trail. Yeah.
Is there any signs saying this? Because I've never seen any signs, so I have no idea.
Yeah,
I knew that there was a park, and that whatever organization was cleaning the park every once in a while. But I thought it was a private park. I thought it was theirs. So
no, it's a public park, but it's state land run by the Waimea Outdoor Circle, all volunteer.
Oh yeah, Outdoor Circle. Yeah.
It's more or less.
I thought it was theirs.
No, it's a lease from the state. Yeah.
Okay.
And
there's no signs saying, okay, you can go do a park. I mean, I'm just wondering what the purpose of all this is.
it's for,
If nobody knows about it, then.
well, people know about it. But it's for,
well,
the park itself is
no
for
signs.
recreation and gatherings, and the trail obviously is for recreation. And the trail's been there for a long time. But maps are
So
best.
it's a request for money for making the second phase, or is it just, what is that?
Well, I'm not a member of Trails and Greenways. Clem Lamb would be the person to bring us up to date, because he's still at it after 20-something years.
Okay.
It's a great walk.
It's actually used by
It's a hidden walk then.
it's actually used by the kids to get to school without having to go on the highways.
Okay. Because just personally, I'm here at White Road, and you know, there's an illegal hike up here, and then I was asking the Department of Hawaiian Homes because they were saying, oh, there's plenty of hikes around here to go to, and they couldn't give me any names of a hike or anything. So when they say that there's plenty of hikes, I'm just like, where, kind of thing.
Well, Trails and Greenways is a wonderful hike. So go to the nature park and take that nice path along the stream and enjoy.
And we'll
I
check
think-
with our transportation planner about any maps that we have on hand too. And then we'll share those out with you folks.
Scott, I want to recognize what you're saying, that when you're saying you're lost, that you live there, you've asked these questions and you haven't been, you know.
I mean, the old timers know it's there, and they might
Right.
know it by a different name. And then younger people that come in, newer people, ask around for it, and don't know really. So that's why I was asking about signage. Is like, if there's any signs or any brochures, or I mean, I come from a marketing background, and for seeing this, it's just like there is no marketing, there is no outreach to the general public saying this is there. It's like a secret, basically.
I think it's a point well taken. Thank you. I did find this map in the CDP. It was a South Waimea Town conceptual plan. It took a lot of things that were in the plan, and so we do have this that we could mark on, and it would make it so nice if because like I said, the back roads and also the specific names of every different street and area in Waimea, I'm just not familiar enough to engage on this. So I guess maybe I'm asking that somehow we get this in a way that those of us who are not knowledgeable could look it up and understand it better. I mean, I have no intention of just being knowledgeable on things that are in Waikoloa or Kauai, where I also used to live. But I share Scott's thing of finding all this just a little bit hard to follow. So.
Yep, Pete here. I'm pretty sure Waimea Trails and Greenways has a website. That's the ad hoc organization. It's not a 501c3 because they were under the umbrella of Waimea Preservation Association for a while. But I'm sure you could get a lot more information by going just to that title.
Waimea Trails and Greenway is under Friends of the Future now.
Okay, I guess, gonna come back on this one more time. If we're going to discuss this as a group, we need to understand it and maybe we need to have maybe even invite someone to come and talk to us, but I guess I'm coming back to, if I'm looking at the list of the Waimea things, right? And we were told that we could do, and I still think that this conversation, because this is going to the director and then it's going to the mayor. I think we can have it in our minutes, but we already know that Waiaka Bridge is not going to be something the county does. We know that that's going to be a state thing, or at least that's my understanding. That's why we moved it off the list the last time. And I think it's going to be more valuable to the director and to the mayor if it is, really targeted I mean, that basically they're asking us to somewhat prioritize this. And I'm not even sure if we've established that the infrastructure bill would cover walkways and bikeways. I don't know. I have no idea.
Ruth, this is Karen.
Yes, Karen.
So I guess that's my question is, what is the purpose of this list? And I know this list, as far as the planning group right now, is just taking notes. But for our little group and our little part of the island, if this is what the people who make the decisions are going to be looking at to make decisions, shouldn't we be putting together a list that says, here's our highest priorities, here's what we think is going to get the best funding, and really help them make decisions? Because the easier they can make decisions on our things, the more likely it is that we'll get funded. If we just send them a vegetable soup full of vegetables, I'm afraid we'll just get lost with all the other vegetables that come in from the rest of the island.
Pete here again. For Waimea, I would submit that the most important priorities are bullets 1, 2, and 3. If you want to narrow it down.
Yeah.
That's an opinion, not a consensus of 100 people. Thank you.
That helps.
So
I
my
mean,
question is, should we as a group come up with a consensus of what our most important projects are? And and how many are we really going to get funded? And so should we pick 2 from each, or, like, what is this list going to be used for? And I know this is a long range project plan. I understand that, but the key is there's short-term decisions being made. And I want to make sure that our decisions get made the way, at least some, in our favor. So what is the best way to help the powers that be make decisions for our projects?
If I can jump in real quick, what it's sounding like to me is that the letter that was sent from the last meeting is really the top priorities for the action committee, which is why they were included in that letter. And so I think the other action committees who are being asked to have the same conversation have not submitted a same kind of prioritized letter in that way. And so we felt like we wanted to bring that same kind of open conversation back to the South Kohala Action Committee as well.
okay.
But it's not saying that you need to do that. I think what we wanted to stay away from during this conversation was having you folks have to flush out what the priorities are for the entire area, right? And so if you guys are comfortable with the letter that you've already submitted and that's what you want to stick with, we can absolutely do that. And then once the task force kind of defines more parameters and figures out how they're going to work with our action committees and our communities, then we can come back at that point for a more detailed conversation, if that helps. I just don't want folks to feel like they have to be experts in all of these different areas. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So I feel like we did really good work in putting together that letter and that list. And without more information, or as you said, more priorities or, filters, then I'm not sure it's going to help us to actually redo that. And it feels like if we just keep adding to it, again, we're just diluting something that we put a lot of work into making as clear as we thought we could. That's just my 2 cents.
Makes sense. And so I guess my question to you folks would be, we are putting this ask out to community. And so my ask is whether you guys are okay with us including Margaret's comment in our notes about the connector road, and then also the conversation around the walkways and bikeways and the Waimea Trail stuff.
I'm just summing through. I have looked at this before, but and I probably have a printed copy of it somewhere, but I don't have it at my fingertips. But if you look at what the legislation is funding, it's clean water. It also means eliminating a lot of lead in service lines. Everyone having access to high-speed internet, repair and rebuild our roads, bridges with a focus on climate change mitigation, resilience, equity, and safety. Improve transportation, reduce greenhouse emissions. Public transit, upgrade the national airports and ports to strengthen our supply chain and prevent disruption. Make the largest investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak. Build a national network of electric vehicle chargers. Upgrade our power infrastructure to deliver clean, reliable energy across the country. Make our infrastructure resilient against impacts of climate change, cyber attacks, and extreme weather events. And deliver the largest investment in tackling legacy pollution in America's history by cleaning up Superfund and brownfield sites. So I don't see where that works its way down to bike trails or walkways. So those other things are really clear. I mean, the Waimea Bridge those things are there, but again, if this is what's going to the county, I'm inclined to agree with what Pete said in terms of those top three things. I'm sorry, someone's going to have to refresh my memory. So potable water does mean that it's drinking. I'm sorry that I don't remember that. Does that mean it's drinking water? No, don't
Yes.
answer. Okay. Yes?
Yes, that's what it means. That's what potable water means.
Okay, so does that mean, lived in Kauai Village, is there any housing development in Kauai that does not have drinking water?
So the reason why that got placed on the list is because that's a longstanding priority from previous discussions with the Action Committee. And we're talking like years ago when there was a concern, and there's still an ongoing concern there with, I believe they're receiving their water from private source. Kohala, I forget the name of it, I'm sorry.
I think it's Kohala Estates. And not Kohala Estates, I think Kohala Ranch. Their water is expensive.
It's very expensive and the
Right.
prices keep going up. So there's been an initiative, a lot of work being done to bring county water from Waimea.
Yeah,
Down
here. Kauai Village is potable water from Waimea. It's county water, and Kohala Ranch is on a private system. And I think the Hawaiian Homes development next door gets its water from Kohala Ranch, and it's pretty expensive.
That's what I think too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know Kauai Village isn't, because I used to be president of the village association. So, and when I look at what it says in the CDP is that it says we establish additional sources of potable water. So there is potable water, but it says to establish additional one.
Ruth, can I jump in? The issue for Kauai that I remember discussing at Action Committee meetings a couple of years ago was that the ability to grant new leases was limited by the amount of potable water. Not that there was or wasn't, right? So they need more potable water so that they can release more leases so more people can have homes there. That's what I believe they're asking for.
Okay.
If I may also jump in, Keiko, from what you said, it sounds like this is not the last time we're going to discuss this. We're just trying to get a list together that can go into a process, and some feedback is going to come back to us for further discussion, perhaps with some items added from public comment or from written input to planning department in the meantime. Is that right?
Yeah, I certainly hope that this would just be the beginning of the team starting to engage with you folks around this. And yes, definitely it's going to be this feedback loop of of information.
So I'd like to suggest at this point that we go with the list that we had already sent in the letter and wait for the next discussion to see if anything needs to be added or removed from that. Because at this point, I think we're slamming face first into a brick wall of we have no idea what the process is and how things are going to be selected, and whether we need to have more items on the list or less items on the list, or whether they need to be prioritized or not prioritized. So I think we've had a good discussion, and I think that we should wait for the next steps to become more well-defined.
See why I think he's such a great vice chairman? Okay, so if it's all right, we're going to move on from this. We're going to stick. Does anybody feel the need to take a vote on what Kevin just said? Because this is not final right now. We don't need to be voting yet. Let's move on to the action committee's project prioritization discussion. And since the same word is used there, I get nervous. So anyway, I'm sorry. So who am I handing this over to? Somebody's going, aren't you guys going to present some? Don't we have
Yeah.
little documents that get?
Here soon. So this is a conversation that we started to have back in March, but we weren't able to. I think we deferred it to this meeting. And the idea is to brainstorm and think of ideas for, and when we say prioritization, we're talking about projects, subcommittees, prioritization as far as your interests and things that you want to devote time and energy to. This is an opportunity to share the kinds of things that you would like to work on, to find mutual interest between one another, form subcommittees, start to brainstorm about different initiatives you might want to move. As far as like thinking about not so much, and I know a lot of these projects are infrastructure projects on this list, but we're trying to move away from the idea that we're pushing on bigger projects, but more so thinking about the grassroots kind of initiatives that surround those projects, if that's something that you're interested in. So I heard a couple of things in our last discussion, like for example, talking about the walkways in Waimea, right? So there's these walkways, but maybe they're not always very put in front of the public for them to see and to know that they're there. So maybe there's an initiative around that to provide information to the community that the trails are there and how they can access them and use them. Something like that, project-wise. I hope that makes sense. So we put together, I don't know if you remember, we asked you folks for ideas on different projects, interests that you have, probably back in February, to prepare for the meeting in March. And so this is a list of kind of what came out of that, emails that we received from you guys, as well as looking at previous discussions, minutes from previous meetings for things that have been brought up, interests that people have. And it's just a list of ideas to get the conversation started.
Heather, can you show the second page real quick, or is that? Oh, it's the same thing. I have two things I was thinking about that so I guess one thing, because I'm interested in number 10 myself, but I also wonder if we might begin the discussion or a group working on preparing for the upcoming revision to the CDP. That is something that I'm also somewhat interested in, because I think even as we talk about it now, we're starting to see that there are other priorities or other projects that are starting to come up that aren't in the CDP because it's been a while now. So I wonder if it might be worthwhile to start getting a head start on revisions or updates to our CDP.
Right. And, just to be clear, we can't jump into a full comprehensive review of the CDP until after the general plan has been adopted. But Absolutely correct. There's great opportunities there to start working on it. So when that conversation does start, you folks are ready to hit the ground running with it, you know? Things like, personally, I wish, you know, as planners, we had more time to do things like go through the monitoring plans of like the South Kohala monitoring plan or the implementation table to find things that have been done, haven't been done, where's the status, start think about lessons learned from the process before, as far as ongoing implementation or policy language that might exist in the CDP. Yeah, I think that's a ripe area for some work.
Heather, on that, in that regard, for the 3000th time, when can we expect the general plan?
That's a great question. And Keiko can answer it better than I can. I can't remember what the timeline is for that. And it's a loose timeline.
Yeah, I don't think we have a definite timeline yet, but as we promised at the last meeting and the meeting before, as soon as we do have that, we will share it out with you folks. Yeah, at least we know it's not going to be this year.
Okay, well, while you're sharing, you may pass along that timeline makes me grouchy. We have a general plan in place for the county of Hawaii that was done in 2005. And nothing happened under Kanoe, and then suddenly it looked like things are going to happen. And it's just, which of the Beatles said, life is what happens to while you're planning, or something like that. But, you know, this is either important or it isn't. You know,
I will share, it is important. It is listed as one of the priorities of the planning department, of the planning director right now. And so there is a team of folks who are working really hard and full speed ahead trying to get this out back to community as a second draft. So I don't want to minimize their work because they are really, really busting okole to get this work done. And it is a priority. Zendo has said, I think, to all of our action committees, and he said it before council as well, that it is a priority of his. So it's getting there.
well, I'm not minimizing or demeaning the work of the planning department. I just, my question, so anyway, I've raised this before. I wonder if they're, I'm just having a hard time understanding if that, you know, if it's also a priority, you know, at the mayor's office, that there's literally an urgency about it. And I know everybody thinks their issue is, but of all things, planning, and as comprehensive as it is on everything from environment to economics to getting from point A to point B, from encouraging business opportunities, it's just it's kind of like we don't have the umbrella up and things aren't cohesive. So it's not a criticism of planning at all. I just well, like I said, I'm grouchy. I'm grouchy about this. That's it.
Ruth, that's one of the reasons that I suggest we get a head start on working on our own CDP, because the general plan might get done next year, it might not. We could amend our CDP independent if we really wanted to be more up to date and include the things that are necessary. And if we would end up doing basically the same work, whether we would be amending our current CDP before the general plan comes out or updating it in large scale after the general plan comes out. We sort of can't can't lose, I guess, in a sense. It's sort of, the effort is going to be worth something, however that timeline works out.
I agree with you. And then I look at and see what they've done in Kohala, and they're just not too worried about what they're just going ahead, and they're getting some really cool things done, So I agree. I think it'd be great for us to have a subcommittee that was looking at what we would change about the CDP and what needs to be, what new information and maybe even new structures,
So Kevin, is that something that you might be interested in forming a subcommittee around?
Well, can I ask a question on that before we do? So I love that idea, Kevin and Ruth. My question would be, to what end? So if we're going to review the CDP, for what purpose? I think we just need a lot of clarity around it because, we could actually end up making it bigger and more complex. And I don't have enough experience to be able to answer my own question, but if we're going to do something like that, which sounds like it could be a really good idea, to what end? What would be our goal? Why would we want to do that?
Yeah, it's fairly, for example, we just had a discussion that said, hey, what are the priorities for South Kohala? They should be in the CDP. We find, I think we're starting to find more often that we have something that isn't directly in the CDP anymore, that isn't now a priority that wasn't then. Right? So that's a simple answer. Another answer is that there are some parts of South Kohala that are not well represented in our CDP, such as the Waikoloa Beach area or even PTA, right? And so there are some gaps in our CDP that we now, in the current day, would look at that and say, oh, we should talk about those. And when the CDP was done the first time, they may not have had as much relevance, right? So there are some things that we know we can do that are adding value we can focus on first, and then anyway, and so on, right? So.
And also, as I said, we actually, I don't want to say that Kohala's gone rogue, but they're certainly operating under different parameters than we are. And, basically when we see things that need to be done, we can at least make it a part of our discussion and start doing some planning ahead of time. Another one subcommittee, I don't know if it's a subcommittee, because when I think of a subcommittee, I think of that as sort of ongoing, but so much of what we talk about and work for comes down to, where we are right now and we're going to talk about this in a minute, so I'll just be quiet, but it has to do with the budget. I think that we should maybe have a more cohesive way that we really look. We have access to it. I mean, I've not done a deep dive, but I've done a dive into all of the CIP projects, and of the 94 projects, I don't know what's happened in the last few. I did this a few weeks ago, but 3 of them directly relate to South Kohala. 3 of the 94 projects. That got my attention. So I have to apologize. I don't think I'm running this meeting very well. Feels a little like okay.
So Ruth, if I may jump in again and answer Heather's question, I would like to hear a little more discussion about all the various priorities and things before we dive in. But yeah, I think as Ruth suggested, perhaps a subcommittee on working on preliminary planning for the updating the CDP or whatever title we want to come up with. As I said, I'm also interested in number 10 on the list because I think that's a proactive thing we can do. And again, is not direct. Some of the things are, sorry, yes. So I'm interested in that in number 10 on the list.
So as far as what you see written here on the screen is not necessarily that we have direct projects associated with them per se, but that these are just like a conversation starter. And doesn't have to be stuck to this list. If there's other things that folks are interested in, this is basically just a time for us to brainstorm.
So is there any further discussion on this item?
Well, this is also an opportunity to create subcommittees if there's, like Kevin's expressed interest in 2 different initiatives now. If that's something you want to see move outside of meetings, you could have an investigatory subcommittee up to 4 members for the purpose of, it could be as simple as to put together a project plan for like preemptive updates to the CDP, or to go through the monitoring plan of the CDP, prepare for that conversation, which would be coming in, well, be a little while from now, but
I think that the items 4 and 6, we had a subcommittee. Kevin and Julia and I were on it on that. We have a report we submitted to the action committee in June of 2019. I don't know that we need to create a subcommittee to address either of those because we did. So I'm not saying, yeah, you can highlight them, but those 2 are
Still priorities, but more we're watching and we're not so much.
oh, they're high priorities. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's
I'm
no
just saying,
like
not a
current
sub-
action that the action committee needs to take at this point is what you're saying.
well,
The action committee has done its action, still priority.
the action, yeah, and the action committee needs to continue to press on these, but we don't need to go have a subcommittee study this because we've done it. And I don't know, I mean, even if you went back to what we did in 2019, you're going to see that Waikoloa Heights was sitting there. That number was sitting in that report at 2,600 houses. You're going to see that Castle and Cook was showing, 700 units coming. Well, I just want everybody who doesn't live in Waikoloa to know that those 2 projects alone are 3,300 houses. And that's more than we have in the village right this minute. So when we get nervous about transportation, you can start understanding why. So, and is this park that is on this list, I'm assuming that's in Waimea,
that's
underneath Waimea Town Center, is that right? Is that correct?
Yep.
Right.
Sorry, I
Yes,
think
Okay.
you mean number 8?
Yes, number 8.
Okay, Manikiole Park is a private park. The property is owned by Parker Ranch and it's leased on a long-term lease to the YMCA in
Oh,
Hilo.
yes.
And it actually should come under historic preservation because that is a historic site, both for Parker Ranch and for Waimea. And part of that park has a connection with Kamehameha the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th vacation home in the back. And so it it's something that Pete and I have been pushing for a long time to try to figure out how we can make sure that it is historically preserved.
Okay, so that should be under historic preservation.
Yeah, and I apologize, I'm not editing it as we're going, but I'm only allowed to comment. I think it's so I don't mess up the sheet that I'm sharing, but I am taking notes. So we'll do all these adjustments and then we'll send it back out to you guys.
I don't think we need a subcommittee on community outreach engagement. I think we need to start doing it when the protocols are enough that I mean, I know that this is quote live somewhere, but we're still not to a place where we're going to be doing, like I said, the little post-it note things. Right, Karen, what do you think about do we need a subcommittee on the Puuko water treatment system? Aren't you the subcommittee of one?
Yes, and we don't right now
Okay.
because there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes and it's all been changing around. So no, when we need one, I'll ask.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'm seeing,
So Ruth, may I make a comment again?
sure, of course.
It sounds like there are two discussions or two purposes in parallel here. One is, what are our infrastructure priorities, of which many of these things on the list are infrastructure priorities. And those are things that we want to follow up on and put pressure on county or whoever to try to make those projects move ahead. And then there's a second, like I said, parallel discussion and list of what projects would the action committee like to undertake, either individuals or subcommittees going and investigating certain specific topics or doing specific activities. The two lists are not necessarily the same.
That's a good observation. Well, the reason I like the one about the responsible tourism is it's a proactive thing that as a community, we've had a hard time getting there from a community perspective. And, there's often such a push back about tourism type things, and yet it's how the island functions. So I think with the brief conversations we've had about is how to make this be, with input, and a group like ours is very good for this because we're not a political group, we're not an economic group, we're not coming in and other than just want to making sure that it's done. It's going to be done whether we like it or not, because the economics pushes it. The question is it going to be done well? And if we could help to make it be done well and give some guidance, I think that'd be great. And I think it would, I think we did talk about this in the one of the whole group action committee meetings and kind of encourage others to consider this as well. And I think we could be a model for other ACs in this. So, and you can just strike them on a road. After action report. I'm not holding my breath anymore.
Yeah, Pete here, just a comment on number 10, HTA Destination Management Action Plan is not only for tourists. A good management plan is good management that very much affects the residents here too. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'm real interested in number 12, historic preservation.
Yeah. And I guess my question to you on that, Pete, would be, I know that you and Bill are already doing a lot on that. I don't know how much Scott is even interested in doing that, but just because he's in Waimea doesn't really mean that there may be other areas of passion that he finds here. But do you guys feel the need to have an established subcommittee?
Not really at the present time. That's just an opinion of one. So
Yeah.
we do participate in related activities. We had a nice Zoom meeting at the last week's Waimea Community Association on the 50th anniversary of the Kauai Canoe Club. And that's all on record, recorded. And the
Nice.
principal presenter was Willette Akima, who's gave a very nice comprehensive history and presentation on the club.
Hey, let me jump in here. For the benefit of Scott, I think either Pete or myself would be happy to meet with him so that we don't violate sunshine law and kind of give him a background of some of what we've been talking about and maybe answer some more specific questions for him so that he doesn't feel like there's no way for him to figure it out himself. So anyway, I'd extend that invitation. I'm sure Pete would too, but one.
I think that's a great idea, Bill. I
Yeah.
just think you're going to need to work with Scott's schedule. So Scott, if you're open to that.
Lastly, from Pete, it'd be really neat to have a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, South Kohala style. Most places you would think would be a nice walk are posted with giant no trespassing signs now. So there just aren't very many places you can walk in the whole district legally. So it'd be nice to come up with what's there. And Waimea Trails and Greenways has demonstrated, as have other places in the country, that having a public trail adjacent to private homes is not dangerous to the homes. In fact, it increases the security. So that's usually the complaint. And compliments to Parker Ranch, they have deeded quite a bit of space along the Waikoloa stream for the Trails and Greenways first segment, the mile of the trail that now exists. It's very heavily used. And we'll have to get Clem Lamb to give us chapter and verse on all the current happenings. Thank you.
Scott, you wanted to chime in?
Oh, yeah, I'd be interested. Actually, I'm interested in 4, 7, and 10. Excuse me, 4, 7, and 10. On the list here of Keiko's list here, the Waikoloa intersection, Waimea Town Center, and what do you call it? Promoting destination management. Yeah, the intersection one, really like to see that being pushed hard, getting it done faster than anything else, other than Waiaka. Actually. But yeah, if there's any way that the action committee can help push that forward. No, I see that as.
Well, we're on record, and we're also, gently nudging behind the scenes. Maybe not so gently.
Yeah, because I've been the last 2 weeks I've been almost around the whole island, just looking at things, mostly traffic wise, but from Hawi and Kapa'au down, I see that their thing is probably, I don't know what they have listed, but I'm thinking it's probably the Kohala Mountain Road, which is very dangerous. I think it's extremely dangerous. I would think that would be number one on their priority list. South Kohala is Waiaka and Waikoloa intersection. And for Kona, I don't know where to start there, but for the Hamakua coast and then Hilo side, I was amazed at how many problems they have with bridges, faulting bridges that are faulty. And if those go out, I mean, you have huge problem here. And so I would think that overall, the island, the county planning, I think that they would probably need to concentrate on that side right now, being that that's one of the only ways to get from point A to point B on the island. That would be quite critical, because I was you have people out there 24 hours a day directing traffic, because making sure that they're keeping the load off the bridges, the multiple bridges there that are failing. So,
Wow.
but that's just what I have observed going around the island.
Nice road trip. Thank you for that report. Okay, so do we have any consensus on forming any subcommittees here? We've had several people express interest in 10, 12. I'm wondering if when Pete, you or Bill meet with Scott, you could talk to him about the Waimea Town Center as well, because I think that's going to come up anyway in your conversation. So if we're not going to do one on historic, we don't need to do. It's not that we're not doing them, it's not that we're just not doing them as a subcommittee. So is there agreement that we would like to have a subcommittee to take a look at the CDP improvements that we would be recommending and potentially just adjusting our procedures as we move forward? I don't think we're going to get in trouble if we improve how we work. Maybe I'm wrong.
As long as we stay within the code requirements for how the AC functions, then it's fine. But maybe just a suggestion, if we're not ready to have 4 people jump in an investigatory subcommittee together, if Kevin wants to explore this idea and maybe define a little bit more clearly what the investigatory subcommittee would be investigating and what their goal would be, then it could come back to the action committee and you guys could form a subcommittee at that time. The only time we need an investigatory subcommittee is if we want more than 2 members, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering if there might be one other person that would be interested in talking with me a little bit about that between, oh, okay. Ruth has volunteered.
Me.
Excellent.
To talk about that.
Ruth and I can do just between ourselves, we can investigate a little bit, and maybe next time
Okay.
around, we can make a subcommittee officially if we think that's the right thing to do.
So can I make the suggestion is that I would love to hear what the problem statement is. So what are the problems that we're trying to solve for? So if we're trying to change the way we work, what's the problem? Problem statement, and then how are we going to investigate? And that's for all of them. You know, the old saying, don't fix it if it's not broke. So what's broke and what are we striving for with a fix? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Excellent suggestion. Okay. Okay, so is there a blazing passion here to set up this I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know. Like I say, I think we're doing a lot of these things. I think work is happening on a lot of these things. It's just not at a subcommittee level. And
Yep, and
we don't have to form a subcommittee.
Not at all. And I think, so maybe next steps, just as a suggestion, is we'll refine this list of projects and priorities that you folks are already working on. We'll send it back out, and then your folks' homework would be to provide a little bit more detail around that. So if we're asked, for example, I mean, and we've been asked this before, planning director is asked to speak at a Waimea Community Association meeting. What are the subcommittee, what is the South Kohala Action Committee working on? What are they prioritizing? We can very easily then turn this information over to him, which then help get it out into the larger community, right? So that question comes often from folks of what is the people who are looking to apply. Trying to think other instances. Lots of the partners like HTA, they're asking these questions of what are the action committees focusing on. And so if we can share out the actions that you folks are working on, it's just helpful to get the word out for implementation wise.
Should we
So if
also
that
have,
works, yeah.
should we also have one or two of us look into what we would be doing for number 10 on the list? A few people seemed interested.
We could, and I can pull in our tourism management person from R&D. We work very closely with her, and she, so it'd be easy to pull her in so that she could kind of provide a framework around how the DMAP or the Destination Management Action Plan is being implemented.
So
That would
I would like to look into that, at least initially, because I had suggested something like this a little while back. So if there's someone else that would like to team up with me on doing a preliminary investigation to number 10, so we can figure out what the action committee or a subcommittee might do.
Well, Scott, you expressed interest in this one.
Yeah, and the Kauai Tourism Authority has changed dramatically within the last year because of the change in leadership. So be interested to see what they have there. I've seen some of their work, and it is quite different from before.
Okay, it's a deal. Let's do it.
Okay, we'll get, you guys follow up together, and you both got these young screamy mimis running around, so you're gonna have to figure out your schedules. Okay. If it's all right, I'd like to go ahead and move on to the next item. Anybody got any objection to that? Can we move on? Okay, this is when we talk about the framework for action committees hosted meetings. And that the idea here is that it would give us an opportunity to, as an action committee, to meet more frequently than we do, which we're meeting 4 times a year as an action committee, and we're meeting twice a year as action committees. So that's 6 meetings in a 12-month time. I'm intrigued by this idea because I think it's hard to get traction when you're meeting that infrequently. So this would be a meeting of our action committee, minutes required and stuff. And I believe the planning, you guys have got some templates to share with us. Nope, not that one, another one. There we go. Keiko's so happy she throws her hand. You need to unmute yourself, honey.
Yep, this is all Heather, but I'm trying this new role of sharing screen, and I feel like I'm winning, sort of.
Okay, so you got the screen, and Heather's you got the floor.
No, we're changing it up. Okay, so we wanted to share with you guys some, so we had a meeting with Ruth and Kevin to prepare for this meeting. And Kevin had the idea of going through a scenario of what all the steps would be if you folks were running your own meeting. So that's what we're here to kind of like just go through piece by piece how we would make this happen. And go to the next slide. Okay, so I thought up a scenario.
Yeah, I shouldn't. Is it on the next slide?
No.
Okay, I shouldn't have cheered for myself, you guys. It's stuck. Hold on one.
Yeah, I
second.
believe in you, Keiko.
Me too.
Is that it?
There we go.
No. Is that it?
That's it. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
So here's the scenario. We're at our May 9th South Kohala Action Committee meeting. The Action Committee has been discussing future plans and project ideas for the upcoming year. They realize that they have a few months gap between their May meeting and their September meeting, if you don't count the joint AC meeting in August. So sounds kind of familiar, right? So that little guy there, I was going to pick on Bill, and now I feel bad for picking on Bill because he's not readily able to defend himself. But so let's say that Bill has been working on roadways in Waimea, and he's been going to South Kohala Traffic Safety Committee meetings, really digging in deep on this topic, and has some things to share, wants to share out to the rest of the committee. And then we have Julia, and she's been working with the Waikoloa Community Association. She has similar things to share, projects that she wants to move forward. And then Karen's working at the with the Puuko Community Association. Same thing. They decide that they want to bring this to the action committee, but there's too much time between the next meeting. So how do they move forward? So here's the question, right? That a lot of you guys are probably asking at this juncture. Sunshine Law. Karen can't go and message the whole action committee and propose starting doing a June meeting. So where do we know what are permitted interactions between action committee members and what are not? So we know one thing. We know that 2 board members can discuss board business outside of a meeting as long as no commitment to vote is made or sought, and the 2 members do not constitute a quorum with their board. So we know that she could go and talk to 1 other member only to talk about this. And there's a caveat to this too. And if you click again, Keiko, we also have to be aware of serial communication, right? So she couldn't go talk to Ruth, and Ruth couldn't go talk to Kevin, and Kevin couldn't go and talk to Bill about the same issue. So how do we go about actually getting this started? So that AC chair and vice chair draft an email to go to the rest of the action committee. We propose hosting an action committee meeting on June 13th at 5 p.m. Our agenda will contain updates on our town priorities to strategize implementation projects. Please respond back to Ruth if you have any additional agenda items and share your availability. That email can't go from Ruth and Kevin to the rest of the action committee. It can go to us staff. The CDP team can then send that out to the whole committee. So then we have an established, hopefully we have heard from enough AC members to establish quorum. We know we can host a June meeting. So 1 month prior to this meeting starting. Some tasks that need to be done. A venue needs to be reserved for the meeting space. We need to be sure that we can establish quorum with the AC members, that we have enough interest to have host a June meeting. And we need to be sure that we filled the agenda up with additional agenda items from AC members. On the left, you see those actions underneath tasks for the action committee to take up. And on the right, you can see where us planning staff will help support you throughout that process. So if there's a reservation you need at a county facility, for instance, and we can help you with that, we're happy to. If there's group communications, you need to send something out to the whole group, we're happy to help forward that communication along so that you're not violating the Sunshine Law. So 2 weeks prior to the meeting. the action committee, the chair and vice chair that are that have received, what we are going to send is templates of agendas. So they draft an agenda and send it to staff. Us staff will review that agenda. There's specific sunshine law requirements that need to be followed. So we're not expecting you to check for that, but we can happily help you with that process. And this is an example of kind of what that looks like. The OIP, they have created all these training materials for sunshine law and how that affects your meeting kind of structure in the agenda that you post out. And they have these examples. This is an example of a bad agenda where there are, there's a series of issues with this, but the main point of this is that the agenda items themselves are very vague. There's just a few words to say what that agenda item is. And the sunshine law is very specific in that any person that's reading the agenda should be able to look at it and understand what is going to be discussed at that meeting. So that's kind of when we're drafting an agenda, one of the very important things that we have to make sure that we're making our meetings accessible, open to the public, and easily understood by anybody in the public that might be interested. And so on the flip side of that, they also include what would be considered a good agenda. So these are the kinds of things that us staff are going to help you to guide you through the process. And we're happy to help you along the way, help with language. Our amount of support for the meeting depends on timing as well, and being able to have the time to exchange, drafts back and forth with you, or however we decide to go about it. 7 days prior to the meeting. That's a sunshine law deadline for us staff to actually post publish the agenda in the meeting packet and send it out to the mailing list. This is the point of no return. You've drafted an agenda, finalized the agenda, and it's gone out to the public. Once that agenda is out into the public, we can't go back and change that again past the deadline that sunshine law lays out. So then we have your meeting day. Oh, I just realized I put that on the wrong side. That's supposed to be on the action committee side. Print information for attendees, which we can help you with as well. If you don't have access to a printer, or if there's a way we can help print that at our planning offices, we can help with that. And then recording the meeting is an optional thing that you might want to consider doing on the meeting day itself.
Can I just ask, does that mean record like on Zoom? What does that mean? Like recording through a cell phone, if you wanted to record discussions. It could also be taking notes during the meeting, but just to make sure that at every meeting that we host, we've always recorded to be sure that if there's public that come to the meeting, we're capturing their input. Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it's optional, but it's definitely something that we have done in the past and has served us well in the past. So one thing about that too, the recorder, is that you would have somebody taking notes and prepared to write minutes for the meeting as well. So just a couple of things I wanted to make sure we note on meeting day. All action committee meetings are open to the public and should be accessible. The meeting must provide an opportunity for the public to comment, testify on any agenda item. So if people come to testify and it's not necessarily on the agenda, you can ask that they maybe write something in later on, but basically we try to keep it to the agenda items. The meeting must have quorum to discuss any business items. Without quorum, you can have informational briefings and public testimony only. And then for action items, motions that are not administrative, so things like minutes or adjournment, you must take a roll call vote. So if you decide on like creating a subcommittee or drafting a letter, sending a letter out, you would take a roll call vote for that. And then the post meeting, action committee would provide follow-ups to attendees as needed. And of course, staff will help with that if they're planning related inquiries, and then draft minutes of the meeting and send to staff, which we would then publish in our public repository and on our website. Which again, we have a template for that too.
But can I ask a question on that?
course
With
you can.
with the meetings of that minute, that, with the meetings of that, the minutes of that meeting, I'll get the M straight here in a minute. Would those be approved at the following action committee meeting, regardless of whether it was not with planning's presence or with planning's presence? Will there
Yeah.
be a formal approval process as we usually have?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. In every way, these meetings are legitimate action committee meetings, and we run them, they'd be recognized the same way, right, in the next meeting. So this is like a summary of all that, because I realize it's kind of a lot, although I have tried to simplify it as much as I can. A month before the meeting, good to establish quorum, that you're going to have enough members before you go into put too much time and effort into something that maybe wouldn't be able to happen anyway. Establishing a venue for the meeting, and then starting to gather agenda items, which then us planning staff would help with any group communications that need to go out to the action committee. 2 weeks prior to the meeting is when you're drafting your agenda and putting together any other meeting materials that you have for that meeting. And we can help review materials, particularly the agenda, as needed and as it's helpful. 7 days, at least 7 days, send materials to staff to post, particularly the agenda. We'll post the agenda and send materials out to the mailing list as well, just like any other meeting. This goes out to our email blast list. And then you have your meeting day. So along with all this stuff, we're also putting together a Google Drive folder, which we'll share with you guys. It has all the materials that kind of spell out the framework for action committees. This includes like the code language that formalizes action committees. It includes provisions in the Sunshine Law. It includes like some loose training materials on Robert's rules, if that's helpful to you. But basically all these resources that I'm hoping are helpful to you folks. Also wanted to share this link here, which is the from the OIP website. They have a training page on Sunshine Law, which has some helpful resources. And agenda and minute templates will go to the chair and vice chair to help them with drafting up any materials, which of course, I mean, whoever's the recorder, whoever's writing notes for the minutes too, that they would have a copy of the minutes template as well. And then I just wanted to include a little note here to please give us time to respond to inquiries and provide you support. If we help you with assist you in putting together your own meeting, we shouldn't hear about it a week before the meeting starts. We can't guarantee you that we would be able to get everything together in order to provide you support and post all those materials in time. But yeah, I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, let us know.
Thank you. Clear presentation.
That was good.
So,
Heather, good job. When you send out the summary, would you note on the thing clearly which things the planning department staff will help with and which ones you aren't able to help with? Because you said it as you were going through and it was very clear, but when you showed the list, I didn't know which fell into which category. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I can send the slides too, if that's helpful.
I think at least the summary slide at the end would be
Yeah,
really
okay.
helpful.
So the other thing that this reminds me of is that I sat in on planning's, the first part of the planning's training with Scott, and then a new addition to the Hamakua Action Committee. And all of us received, when you came on board, a packet of information that at the very least, the contact list is no longer current on. So there also was didn't do a side by side, but there was a November, I want to say November 2021 thing. It was about sunshine laws, and because it was dated November of 2021, it made me wonder if there were anything substantive that changed there from what I've seen before. At any rate, I would like to ask planning to send that to all our members, the packet that Scott saw, and I got a copy of, because it actually is pretty helpful to reread, and remember what on earth we're doing. And it's a good packet. They did a good job, and it also has all of our current members' email addresses, phone contacts, all that stuff. So if you guys can send that out to the committee, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my question for you folks might be, I know that in the meeting that we had with the chair and vice chair, you guys were discussing the idea of having a June meeting. Is that something that you're still wanting to plan?
Would you ask that question one more time? I think that was for me and Kevin.
Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to here is that if you're interested in having a June meeting, this might be a great opportunity to try to establish if you have quorum for that meeting.
Are you saying, wait, are you asking? I'm still not clear on what the question is. What is the question you're asking?
I remember having a conversation with you and Kevin, and you guys were interested in the idea of proposing a June meeting. So
Yes.
I was just offering that as a, before we wrap up this agenda item, if you were interested in pursuing that, this could be an opportunity to ask your fellow committee members if they would be interested.
Well, given the timeline you've just shown us in terms of a month's lead time, I don't know if we shouldn't look at something in July instead of June. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Kevin? I can't even get to July.
One of the questions that I had when we talked about it was, do we have any proposed agenda items for such a meeting? And if we do have some proposed agenda items, is that the right way to address them by having a AC hosted meeting between now and next week? Because it is a long time until we have another meeting like this. Does anybody have any? So for example, let's imagine that we wanted to say, all right, we want to hear back from the people that are checking on the CDP update idea and the working with HTA on the destination plans. Do we want to wait until September to have that update, or do we want to have a meeting before September where we would get those updates? That could be an example of an agenda that would be, it's a real thing, right? So then we could talk about whether it's useful to have a meeting.
Well, it sounds like maybe some more thought might need to be put into that on the back end. We can send out a group communication too for you folks. I just wanted to float the idea.
Well, I agree with Kevin. It's a long time. The other thing that I think that it's hard to track, because I know people are doing things, right? But like, and I'm not sure that we shouldn't, like the Waimea folks, plan to say, okay, here's where these are the steps, these are the things that are happening, the steps that are going along of things that are relevant to the CDP that we're working on. And just not, especially if we would all like have something typed up or something, a statement ready, a visual would help tremendously, would help me tremendously. But on those things that we've already listed that are important, I mean, Karen's not asking for a subcommittee now, but I know there's a lot that's going on there. And it would be nice for us to maybe know about that in a little more detail. I'm just brainstorming here. The thing that I shared today about a feasibility study being done in Waikoloa, that's a huge step forward. And I've got a feeling these things are going to be moving pretty fast here. I'm not sure. In Kauai High, Kevin was 100% right. I looked at the CDP and it under that thing on potable water, it says it was that the primary things is it completely stalemates any development in that area because there isn't enough potable water for a development to come in. So, and I don't think we have anybody with Diane, not honest. I don't know that we have anybody. And like somebody contacted her and she was no longer, who contacted her? Was that planning? Who contacted Diane and she was no longer with?
Oh, that was me. Yeah.
That was you. That's what I thought. So Diane is. So go ahead and say what is she not involved in anymore?
The Kailapa Community Association.
Okay. Anyway, I'm not saying that would take a lot of it, but I think us having a pulse on what's going on throughout South Kohala as members of the action committee is useful, to at least have a frame of reference if a question comes to us, and then also to be able to direct to the correct person who's doing it. So, and honestly, well, we are going to talk about budget. We need to move forward so we can talk about budget. Oh, we definitely need to move forward. Does June sound too soon to anybody else? Are you guys wanting to meet in June, or would it be better to do in July, especially as our first time? I don't know. Okay.
What would be the purpose of the June? I'm fine, except for the first week in June, I'm gone. But yeah.
Well, I think that the agenda items that we've talked about, one was the dive into what we might be looking forward to in the CDP, 2.0. Second one was on the tourism idea. Third would be a community update where we would talk about, and even Scott, what you shared about your round the island tour was really informative. People have got all these things going on, and I just think that it, in a succinct way, which you did a great job of sharing, the highlights of what you saw, except for when you got to Kona and then you went, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. But
it's a larger area. So.
Yeah, but
and I didn't do Kohala either. So.
Well,
Kohala is crime. So.
So Ruth, why don't we take planning up on their suggestion to send out some group emails to get further information on the proposed agenda items and availability and preferences for meeting timeframes. Since if we're talking
Perfect.
about July, we do have a little bit of time to sort it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Also
All right.
wanted,
Good plan. Okay.
also wanted to note too that we've lost quorum. because Karen had to go. So we can still talk, but any kind of deliberations can't, we can't be setting any meetings right now. So absolutely.
We have 5. We have me, Pete,
Yes.
Kevin, Scott, and Bill. That's 5 of 9.
Yeah, but the sunshine law requirement requires people to be on webcam to count for
On
quorum.
webcam. So all the Bill needs to do is turn on his picture and we have quorum.
Which
Bill,
we could ask him to do, but I mean, we might
Bill,
not have
What
any
point you-
deliberations anyway to
It's past
have-
my bedtime, Ruth.
huh?
It's past my bedtime, Ruth.
It's your bedtime. Okay, well, if we're just getting an update on the budget, we don't need, we don't
Absolutely.
have any, let's just move ahead and let's, I understand. So let's get the update. I know that, well, actually, go ahead and please do the timeline on budget, because this is happening now and we need to.
So this is nothing for to ask deliberations on, right? But this is just a brief update from us on what's happening with the CIP budget. So what Keiko has shared on her screen here and what is in your meeting packet is Elise so kindly went through the CIP budget and pulled out items that were either within or related to what's happening in the South Kohala district, so that you guys could have an easy reference on what's kind of being placed in the budget, being proposed project-wise for capital improvements. And so this is just a resource for you guys that we've put together. Hopefully it's helpful and gives you kind of a snapshot of what's happening, what's being proposed. And invitation also to you folks, but also to community that are listening as well, that for this upcoming fiscal year, the operating and capital improvement project budgets are scheduled to go before council on Tuesday, May 17th through Thursday, May 19th. So if you have thoughts or feedback to share with your council members, that's an avenue to do so. And this document is in your meeting packet. And
I thought I printed it, but I didn't. I'm just trying to.
we've sent it to you guys via email too, so you should have access to this.
Okay, can you scroll back up just a little bit? Okay,
And
so
sorry, I was just going to make a mention. This is also posted on our website for folks that want access to this.
So the housing project is the one that actually is by far the largest allocation. It's got money both in the operating budget, the operating budget, and it also has a CFP. It has 2. And if approved, those joint allocations for fiscal year 22-23 would be $1.45 million. So it's the project in South Kohala that they're proposing to give the most money to. They also, in the budget, they separate out, I don't know why, but they take and separate out by area, money from the highway fund that goes to that area. And they have two kinds of expenditures. One is S&W, which is salary and wages. And the other is other current expenses.
Sorry,
And
just to clarify, you're talking about the operating budget, not the CIP budget, right?
I'm talking about the operating budget. Yes, on those two items, those are in the operating budget. I'm just telling you, when I did my look at what was in the two different budgets, and then again, as I said, there were three projects. And one of them is the Poniola intersection improvement. That is one, the IHACO, and then the other one specific, and when you can see see where it says location and council district, see how those both have a 9 in them? Those are ours. Can you scroll down? I mean, those are only ours. The ones that say all are things that are going to be done, park and ride lots, all of it is going to be throughout the county. Does it go down any further? See, all the rest of these are also, there's one missing here. What is it? Yeah. What's the third one? So it was the intersection, it was the housing. There's one other.
Discretionary funds, maybe?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's Tim Richards discretionary funds that he can give out to nonprofits and other organizations. That's exactly what, so there was 3 things specific to our district. Our action committee area. And they're all good things. So what else do we need to say on this agenda item?
Nothing unless you folks have any questions for us. But otherwise we can just move on.
Right. Well, let's move on. Yeah, that was what it was.
We're over time and I need to.
Yeah.
Very, very soon, so I have to.
Right, so what?
So because we don't have quorum, I'll send an email out to the action committee asking for agenda items for the next meeting.
Are you talking about the one in September?
Good question.
Yeah,
Just looking at our agenda, saying that agenda for the next meeting.
yeah, because at that time we didn't know that we might be having a next meeting in
Yeah.
maybe whatever you're going to send out on the potential one in July. Let's let that count for that or whatever. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Pete makes motion. Oh, surely, Kevin, you want to give me a second? Yes, second. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank everybody for being here and have a good week and we'll get back together. We'll be less bumpy next time. Mahalo.
Thank you, planning, for the materials. Was good.
Thank you
Hello.
guys so much.
Hello.
Being here. Appreciate you guys.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Aloha.